voted to initiate without delay a review of the council supplementary planning document with regard to HMOs and specifically percentage thresholds. Corporate Director Ferris then ignored the clear will of elected members, not wanting to pursue the matter. He delayed for 2 months, even responding to me, before indicating he was taking an update to executive in April. He then spoke to a paper at executive when he deliberately misled executive, raising the spectre of the whole local plan being delayed or failing entirely if such a review of the SPD or policy was undertaken. Similar misleading statements were repeated by Director Ferris at scrutiny calling. I attended and spoke at a number of the local plan inquiry sessions in July, and in particular the one dealing with student housing issues, policy H8. It is clear that this council is free to propose modifications, minor or main, into the local plan inquiry process, and on this issue, the inspectors were clear that such a modification could be made and would be welcomed without putting the local plan at risk of delay or withdrawal. If any of you have read my correspondence, which went to the leader and deputy leader and Councillor Douglas, or viewed the webcasts of the relevant inquiry session I have sent you, you'll realise you have been seriously misled by Director Ferris. Indeed, when I tried to get the webcast links of Director Ferris's misleading and wholly inaccurate statements to executive added to the local plan inspection library, he objected on the basis that webcasts are not a statutory record of meetings, adding in an email to the programme officer, if I wished to take up his performance, I was free to do so through council systems. So here I am. I don't wish to submit anything via the current monitoring officer, who remains thoroughly tainted in my eyes on complaints issues. So I wish to submit to the Chief Operating Officer, who unfortunately is also not here, a formal complaint against Corporate Director Ferris for wilful disregard of the will of full council with regard to the December 2021 approved motion, and for deliberately misleading executive in April 2021 and Corporate Scrutiny Calling Committee in May 2022. Apologies, I got the first date wrong. With statements proven to be untrue as to the implications for the local plan should modifications to policy H8 be made.
You've got 15 seconds, Councillor.
I'll follow this in writing, but pending consideration of this complaint, I'd like to ask the group leaders or the surrogate group leader to pursue the will of full council from last December, an item under urgent business at Thursday's executive. Abby? Thank you.
Thank you. Your comments are taken into account. Okay, our second and final speaker is Gwen.
Councillor Witherspoon, can I just ask for clarification on this pink paper issue that you mentioned? Reason why I raised it was I'm not sure if it's one of the papers that I'm going to be referring to, but secondly, if there's going to be some debate about whether a paper should be in pink or not, in private or not, the policy has been at this council that it's discussed in public, whether it goes in private or not, for obvious reasons.
My understanding is that the papers are currently private, and therefore we go into private session to discuss them, and then if they can become public, then they become public from there on in. Otherwise, you would have a private paper that may stay private being discussed in public.
Just one more, just one precedent for you. It was Councillor Stewart in the it was a while ago, but he questioned the whether a paper, in fact, the whole committee, it was Audit and Governance Committee, questioned about whether a paper should be held in private or public. Staff were insistent it was in private. The members voted to have it in public. The debate was in public, so we could see the to and fro's on the debate in public. If I can just leave that with you. I know what you've been told, and I'm just telling you what's happened before.
Okay,
Thank you.
Many thanks.
Sorry. Can I ask if it's which paper it's to do with, the one that's questioned, if it's to do with the one I'm talking about?
It's the working as one.
Thank you very much. Remote working. Thank you. Now I'll start. Sorry, Chair.
Okay.
Chair, I can't say much about the two reports on working from home and the temporary staff, as the reports are appallingly on pink papers. The excuses proffered for each are relative are reflective of the secrecy we are used to here, and both are unacceptable. As most redaction should be used, at most redaction should be used, not complete exclusion. On the temporary staff, we try each year at Citizens Audit to work out the eye-watering amounts we pay in total. A fag packet calculation is that we are paying about 15 million, maybe nearer 20 million in off-books staff, some kept on for years. We pay 9.7 million to work with York. We spend over 4.5 million on agency workers, each on 60k plus a year. Add to that the 1.5 million external lawyers' bills, that's what we found. We know there are more staff costs in various other codes. It's an absolute fortune, and like last year's almost doubling of staff on 50k plus, it's out of control. The largest payouts are eye-watering too. One seemingly still with us got £136,000 for a maximum of 7 months' work. That's more than Floyd. Multiple others getting £100,000 a year or more. This is ballooning out of control. We need full disclosure of the extent of this spending, a scrutiny and a value for money audit. We ratepayers deserve transparency, not secrecy. We need to understand if this massive spend is commonplace or if we are an outlier in our comparator local authorities. Our HR has an appalling record over the last decade. Can we have a peer review? The report on remote working has also been hidden from us. We need a full open conversation on this. We see this so-called local authority becoming ever more distant and anonymous. It simply isn't functioning. The staff may as well not be in Scarborough, Staffordshire or South Lincolnshire. They may as well be in call centres in Bulgaria, Bosnia or Bangladesh. Whatever the report says or not, I am requesting that it be passed to a scrutiny and an A&G committee for review. I have never seen a policy decision by members on the work from home policy moving forward. The matter of home working is a key decision. It affects all of us, a policy matter not to be delegated to far-flung top management to serve their own commuting desires. Thank you, Chair.
Comments noted, and we will get back to you. Many thanks. Okay. So we've done the minutes. So there's an apprenticeship update, which is pages 3 to 10.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an apprenticeship update for you generally. This is something that I propose the committee might actually be interested in. And it's something that we've had quite a bit of success on in this last year, despite the pandemic. So you may well be aware from previous updates that we have a public sector apprenticeship target. That actual target actually finished this year, set by the government. However, we've decided as a CMT, we're going to continue that because we've done an awful lot of good work. The apprentice levy money, there has been an awful lot of lobbying over the years from the LGA, etc., to look at how we actually use that levy. We can only actually use it for training for our staff. We can't use it for staff costs, etc. It is just purely for training. So it really is a massive opportunity. However, we do pay an awful lot of money in, and we do have the ability to give some of that to the city as well. And you'll see it paragraph. We have given something 160,000 to other parts of 9 local businesses within the city, which has been great, which has therefore funded 27 apprenticeships in terms of their funding, obviously not for the staffing side, and we're continuing to do that. So this last year, up to 31st of March 22, we actually closed out at 79 new apprentice starts. We will have more than that on roll because obviously not all apprenticeships are 1 year. We can go from 24 months all the way through to there's some that are 5 years now. We've certainly seen an increase in our cohorts for social workers, which is brilliant. And we've also looked at this as part of succession planning, etc. COVID did put a lot of pressure on getting new apprentices through, purely because you want that quality offer, and a lot of our services couldn't actually bring people in because we weren't allowed into this building, etc. And we are looking at it being a quality offer, but at the same time, as managers have come back in now, etc., we are looking at making sure that we're myth busting around what apprenticeships can offer and the pure benefit of apprenticeships. A large portion of it is to look at upskilling our existing workforce, but as I say, social workers have been a great for that process. Sorry, I've just picked my champ and moved my chair. Social workers have been really good for that, and we're into our 4th cohort now, which is really good. It's a 3-year apprenticeship, so that's really worked well. We have set aside some funding. We've recognised at the CMT level that because of the pressure around staffing costs, we have around about £120,000 per year, which can equate to around 7 apprenticeships. That is being carried over from last year, so we think we can fully fund rather than just part fund 3 more apprenticeships for 2 years. That's generally in business administration that we actually focus on that, which is really good. It doesn't have to be for a young school leaver, etc. It can be any age, but it's a way of getting into the council and fulfilling some of our really hard to reach, really hard to fill posts, such as business support and customer services, which is where we're getting some recruitment issues at the moment. We also ring fence some of that money for our young people in terms of those that are part of our corporate parent responsibilities as well. We're also doing some work which is slightly different to apprentices, but I thought I'd give you an update on that in terms of T-levels, which are taking off. You'll have seen that the government are very interested in T-levels at the moment, and we're signed up to the LGA to make sure that we're on track to, it's a target of 1 this year. Not everything's gone through at the moment, and that's at a national position, but we're certainly hoping to have some T-levels as well as apprenticeships on that, and hopefully getting some funding. And Unison Charter, there has been a Unison Charter, and I've got some experience of this, and we're looking to sign that up, but not just with Unison, we're also going to be looking at it with our 3 recognised trade unions, GMB, Unison and Unite there. And just for your information, because I thought this may well be a question about salary of apprentices, which I didn't include in here, we actually offer our local rate for apprentices. The rate for apprentices, if you were just going off the age for wage, would be £4.81 for any apprentices starting in their first year. Locally, in the year 1, we offer £6.83. And in year 2, we offer £9.18. But if that individual is over 23, we offer the national living wage at £9.50, not the living wage foundation rate, which is £9.90. But just thought you could see then the differences around that. So essentially this report, Chair, is just for you to note the good work that's been done both with the skills team and HR team. It's very much a coupled route that we take to try and increase our apprentices in the council. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Chair. It's just on paragraph 18 about providing some ring fencing for people in parenting.
Yeah.
I just wondered what sort of proportion of that money was ring fenced for them, and how have you been successful in getting them as apprentices as well?
It's not a case of ring fencing the money, it's about really just earmarking an opportunity. It's an opportunity.
Right.
We have had 1 through, to my knowledge. We didn't have anyone else. Unfortunately, with an apprenticeship, you have to have your maths and English. And you can let them run the way through and do their maths and English at the same time as their apprenticeship qualification as such. But unfortunately, that's where people do fall out. So we have had 1 that's gone all the way through, which has been great, and has then also secured another post in the council as well. So
thanks, Chair. And on the bringing in care experienced people for apprenticeships, something that I'm hearing constantly across the city from people who work with young people in similar situations is that the benefit system just doesn't support independent living for people that are in this situation, you know, independent essentially, and then they're on apprenticeship rates. There is no way that they can afford to live in the city. And so I'm being asked by numerous organisations to make put pressure on where possible to try and make the situation better for these young people who are trying to forge an adult life for themselves. And I think that we should be aiming to be part of that. So I really think we should be having a look at the apprenticeship rates for the under 25s, and particularly care leavers, because otherwise it's just not feasible for them to stick with that apprenticeship program.
If I can just come back on that, I completely agree with you. When you compare, which is the other reason why I gave you the rates that we're doing. So if you compare the £4.81 rate, which is what the government set for all apprentices at, in their first year, versus what we do in terms of £6.83, but completely get that £6.83 is also quite a low figure. But as I say, if they are over 23 and in that independent living, they would get that £9.50 with us. But
Can I just come in here, because I am very conscious of your time today. I absolutely agree. I don't see how anybody in their right mind can live on less than a £5 an hour. Or if they're 17, 18, 19, 20, they can live on £6 an hour. The bar staff are paid £7.50 an hour, and then they get tips of 30, 40 quid a session on top of that. Can we have a review into what we are doing with our apprenticeships, please? That was one of my questions, Helen, and I'm not sure whether I asked you about it beforehand, but I am slightly horrified that we think that that's an acceptable pay rate. So building on that, can we have a report? I don't know where the reports go to. You're going to have to tell me whether it comes back to SMU or whether it comes to exec. We've got very few apprenticeships. That number is low, because most of the apprenticeships reading the papers are actually being upskilled. They're not what I would say is new people coming in. It's being used for various people through the system already. So it's the new people coming in, or the people transferring and trying to gain a role, whether that's as an electrician, or whether that's as a teacher, or whether that's as an HR person through apprenticeship through that route. Can we have a look as to how we can do that and support people to make it happen?
not every post is on these rates either. So where it's evaluated. So, but yes.
If it's only a few that are on that rate, it's an even easier fix.
Sorry, it's something else that yes, yeah, of course. No, that's great. Thank you. And then just as a matter of course, I think that it's important when we get these updates that we know what our apprenticeship pot looks like, the levy pot, and how we are spending against that, because I do understand that it can only be used for training, which is tremendously disappointing. It's just not good enough, is it? I know there's a lot of national lobbying around it, but it's falling on deaf ears, which is just dreadful. But it does concern me that we're not using enough of that internally for that progression of staff. If it's sat there, I think we should be using it, you know, and I think that needs looking
We can
into.
actually, we have seen a report on that previously, so I'm sure that that can be.
But it should be a standardised
Yeah.
inclusion, I think, in here. And, you know, we have a lot sat in that pot. I know we do. I think the last time I had a report, it was something like, I mean, it was well over 1 million.
My understanding is it's nothing like that, because you have to spend it inside a certain amount of time. You can't keep accruing it.
Simply disappeared.
Yeah.
Once
So
gone
we
to
have seen a
25.
report on that. It might be
Yeah.
worth. I'm trying, and I could be wrong, Helen, but I think I've seen a report on that in the last 18 months. So if you want to go back and see what,
Yeah.
because what I asked for was the targets and where they were and how the people were moving through, and I've definitely seen something like that on exec. What I'd be interested in is the comms. Because when you talk to people and when you read the consultation from the big conversations and all the rest of the consultations that we're doing around the city, anybody who talks about apprenticeships says two things. One, they're not paid well enough, so they're not worth me going on them. And two, they're for electricians or plasterers. So I'm just giving you the feedback. So we need to do something about the comms.
Yeah, and I didn't really finish on what I was wanting to say, that I understand how the system works, but in my view we should not be getting to a situation where that money is even considering going back to the treasury. You know, it's initially taxpayers' money. It sits in a pot for training, for apprenticeships. We should be finding a way to use it.
it is only for apprenticeships, it can't just be for wider training.
But my
unfortunately.
understanding is
Those
we
could be
are using it
progression, can't
as
they?
much as
We
we
are.
can, and we're getting better year
Yeah.
on year, because
Yeah.
that's what I have seen through the reports.
Yeah.
Any further questions, ladies? No? Many thanks. Okay, so if we go on to the next paper, which is committee appointments. Any comments? Okay, so we just take it as read that that paper goes through. The next one is the appointment of Assistant Director of Adult Services. What I'm trying to do, Helen, is take it as read
Yeah.
that we have read the
Thank
papers,
you.
right? We
That's
don't
great.
need you to summarise them for us. We do read.
Thank you. Well, if you've read this one, you understand that my recommendation is just looking to permanently recruit an Assistant Director of Adult Social Care, as the post holder has got a further promotion in another council, and I'll be looking at getting an appointments panel sorted. So it's just asking for formal approval for that. And it's going out on a like-for-like basis.
Any comments, councillors? No? Okay. So that's through, and that appointment's now official.
We won't be advertising until September.
Right, okay. So the work plan on pages 19 to 20. Any comments, councillors? No, I didn't have any comments on there. What might be useful though, given the debate that we've had so far, is put a significant amount of time into an apprenticeship and into training.
What I can do, Chair, is actually look at that, but whether I'll have it in time for the 17th of October meeting, but it can certainly come back.
Okay, so then we're on to the report for the council agency workers and work with York engagement. Some of which is on the salmon paper, some of which is on the white paper. So if you stick with the white bit to start with, Helen, take us through that, and then we'll go through each of the three papers. The white bit is what I would suggest, and then we go into a different session to discuss. Does that work, or does it work better if we actually discuss all three in private first and then say what can be or can't be discussed?
That would be my recommendation, Chair.
Do the private one first?
Yeah.
Okay, all right then.
We're going to discuss all three of them, and then we'll be back with. Okay. Mark,
Okay, welcome back. We've had a thorough discussion on all three papers, and the consensus from the committee is that items 9 and 10, so the council agency workers and the working as one programme, can be more fully in the public domain. So those papers will be being rewritten and reviewed by myself and Councillor Douglas, and then published by the 25th of August. And they will be published, I am giving the wording, as a supplement, and there will be a link on the minutes so that you can find them. Item 11, which is the redundancy pension or exit discretion, is not for public consumption, so that stays as a private paper. Okay, so that's all the items covered. The final item is urgent business. I'm unaware of any urgent business. Okay. Many thanks for everybody's time. A really interesting debate and great work that's going on inside of the council that we need to shout about and showcase. Many thanks. Good night.